Yes, the Liz Truss campaign put out a pretty speedy U-turn around midday yesterday. This, of course, was on the policy that was announced the night before, talking about regional pay boards. The confusion with the selling of this policy was that initially she was talking about civil servants, but the number, 8.8 billion, that was attached was about a conditional, if it was expanded to all public sector employees. Now, it's true that public sector employees in some regions of the United Kingdom are about 10 percentage points ahead in terms of their pay levels to equivalent private sector employees. So there is a strong Conservative argument that can be made for equalising those levels, so that if you're in the public sector, you're not way better paid off than if you're in the private sector, because, of course, there's the argument that crowds out private sector innovation and jobs, particularly in left-behind parts of the country. However, that argument got completely washed away with the discussion yesterday, and what we heard was the Labour Party, the Trade Union Congress, many journalists and indeed the Rishi Sunak campaign all saying that this would mean cutting the pay of nurses, teachers and doctors. Now, Liz Truss would say this would only apply to new contracts. It doesn't mean any pay cuts for people immediately, but the waters were muddied, and clearly the Liz Truss campaign thought the simplest, easiest thing to do was just withdraw the policy and try and pretend it never happened.
You see, that didn't look good, because she actually properly backtracked, said, well, what I meant was I didn't mean that. But I can hear what you're saying, because what she was really trying to get at was that she was trying to equalise the public sector pay with private sector pay, because actually it turns out public sector payers get paid more than the private sector.
In some parts of the country, yes, and this is why it was so politically difficult, because actually in places like London, the private sector wages are higher than public sector wages, whereas in other parts of the country it's different. So if you're talking about a levelling up agenda, it's very hard to justify that with saying actually the pay in London it should probably go up more than the pay elsewhere. That's a really hard political message to deliver, and so they decided to withdraw from it. Now, the Liz Truss campaign say, yes, OK, we've withdrawn this policy, that's one U-turn, but they put out a briefing note yesterday to journalists showing that Rishi Sunak, in their minds, has performed 9 separate U-turns over the course of this leadership campaign. Everything from VAT to the level of tax to the Rwanda policy, to all sorts of different policies that he has either opposed in cabinet, opposed at the dispatch box, or even opposed at the start of this campaign, to then spin around and push forward now. And of course, the rounding off of yesterday was this new YouGov poll, which, if you exclude Don't Knows, puts it 70-30. 70 for Liz Truss, 30 for Rishi Sunak. That, to some extent, put a big exclamation mark on what was quite a dramatic day.